Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Brevity of Life with Vidumelo. I am your host, Vidumelo Lamola, and this is my podcast. Thank you for joining me today. If you like it here, please camp, subscribe, click the notification bell, like the video, share it, and let's just engage in the comment section down below. So I come bearing gifts. I come with another story for you today about a woman named Hagar. And this story can be found in the book of Genesis, chapter 16. I have decided that I will read a few verses today just to stir up the ground a little bit and also to provide context. So let's read chapter 16, verse 1. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children, and she had an Egyptian maidservant whose name was Hagar. So here is Hagar. She is a maidservant to a woman named Sarai. Sarai was a wife to a man named Abram. I'm guessing at this stage Sarai was maybe 75 years old because there is a 10-year age gap between Sarai and Abram. And so she goes to her husband, Abram, and she says, My Lord, I have grown old in age and I have not borne you any children. So, how about you take my maid servant and maybe she can conceive and I can have children through her? The Bible says Sarai took Hagar to Abram, and Abram took Hagar as his wife, and she conceived a child. But after the conception, Sarai despised Hagar, and we know the word despise is a very strong word. That means it's beyond hate. So the Bible says she despised Hagar. And so Sarai went back to Abram and she says, Hagar, I gave Hagar to you, but Hagar is now showing hate towards me. Remember, one point that I need to highlight was there was some level of, I would say, maybe animosity that suddenly developed between Hagar and Sarai after she conceived. Because Hagar herself, also started mistreating Sarai, who is in fact her mistress. Okay, so Sarai goes back to Abram and she says, Look, I gave you this woman, and now this woman is treating me like this. But then Abram says, Deal with her how you want, for she is your maid servant. And so Sarai decides, all right, I'm going to deal harshly with her. And it was so harsh because she chased Hagar out of where they were staying. And so here's Hagar. She finds herself in the wilderness, and an angel of the Lord appeared to the same Hagar. So the angel asks Hagar, What are you doing here? And where are you going? And Hagar explains that she's fleeing from her mistress Sarai. But the angel says to Hagar that return back to your mistress and humble yourself before her. Not only that, then the angel began to release some special blessings upon Hagar. And this is what the angel said. He said, I will multiply your descendants exceedingly, so that they shall not be counted for multitudes. And the angel of the Lord said to her, Behold, you are with child, and you shall bear a son. You shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord has heard your affliction, and he shall be a wild man. His hand shall be against every man and every man's hand against him, and he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. That was the blessing that the angel of the Lord released upon the life of Hagar. And then Hagar in the verses, I think this is in verse 13, she calls the Lord, she says, "You are God who sees me." But here is the gist of the story. It couldn't have been easy for Hagar to return to Sarai, but the Lord had placed a blessing in that action. He said, "Go back and humble yourself before Sarai." Sarai, who probably had good intentions and maybe hadn't given this as much thought as she thought she had, because having suggested that her own husband takes another wife, surely she could have anticipated that it would not have worked out that well. But then in that, I don't want to call it a mistake, but in that action, the Lord was still present for both Sarai and for both Hagar. And the reason I say it is because God didn't deal with Sarai harshly. God said to Hagar, "Go back to Sarai." And Hagar went back to Sarai, and she later gave birth to a son named Ishmael. And at this point, excuse me, at this point, Abram was 86 years old. I'll tell you more about what then happened in the later stages between Hagar, Ishmael, Sarai, and Abram. That is the end of our second episode. Thank you so much for watching.